Whew, we're here. It's Tuesday. What's up, everybody? How you doing? I it's been it's been one of those kind of wild couple of years, decades. I don't know. It feels like it's been a lot. But this, yeah, it's been a very kind of hurry up and wait, but then hurry up a lot and don't wait, depending on the project that we're talking about. And this last month has felt sort of like you do a lot of work to get to a point, and then that work all kind of gets to either the first 10% or the last 10% of a project. And I feel like I've spent a lot of time stressing out about the last 10% of projects and the first 10% of projects. And every once in a while, as you're spinning plates, they all converge on being in exactly that phase at the same time. I feel like the last few weeks I've been in either the last 10% or first 10% of literally everything I'm doing, which is kind of like, oh my God, this is but what's going on? What's up, Cubic? What's up, Jack? How you doing? Michael, good to see you. Lacondo, hello. Yeah, so today what I was thinking I wanted to do is I have been working on updating the Code TV website to use a mono repo. And there's a couple reasons for this. The first one is the probably the biggest one, which is that right now nobody but me can run the Code TV website, just the UI side of it, because it's got all the automations built into it as utilities running through an ingest endpoint. And because that's bundled with the site itself, it's very convenient for me, because everything's just kind of together, but it's impossible for somebody else to run because all of the environment variables have to be set for the website to operate. And that's just not really a reasonable thing to expect if anybody wants to contribute to the site, because it's like you need an ingest key, you need a sanity key, you need clerk and ConvertKit and Cloudinary and like a whole bunch of stuff. And that's like fine if you're actually working on those systems because you need to have those things. But for just the regular UI of the site, it should be possible to boot it up and run it and just know that if you try to do anything that would trigger an automation, that it's not going to work, right? And I think that's okay. I think that's sort of what I've been working on toward. The other thing I was thinking about is that some of the stuff I'm building is potentially shareable. Like I have some automations that I've been building to, like I'm currently building, not intentionally, but I've been building what is effectively a Calendly clone, which wasn't what I intended to do. Like what I'm intending to do is some automation around how things like Learn with Jason get booked, because right now I work with Aiden, who is kind of like my administrative assistant. He will, like, somebody books through Calendly, and then that creates an email, which then I have to create a card in Notion and write a title and description, and then Aiden will take whatever's in Notion and make events for it and trigger some automations and stuff. And so I would like to like create the automation so that when somebody books a show, it creates the Notion card for me and sends something to Discord that's like, hey, there's a card waiting for you with a link to it. And then has a status on it that's like waiting for Jason. And then I can go in and I can write the title and description because I want to write those by hand. And then once I've done that, I just, toggle the switch to like ready, at which point Aiden would take it and do the other automations. But I can also do things like right now, I have to jump into Figma to create image assets. But like I have all the images through the form because we ask for a profile photo and stuff like that. So it would also be nice if after I've written the title, we could kick off an automation that would generate the show description, right? All this stuff is possible because it's all just templates that we're filling in. So we can automate all of this. And as I was thinking about this, I was like, this is the sort of thing that would be really nice to just sort of open source as a thing that people could use, and not necessarily make it just bundled up inside the Code TV website. It could be like a little package that, obviously you'd have to copy paste it and modify it to be your own, but it wouldn't be quite so hard to abstract out into your own projects. But so that's sort of what I'm thinking. Yeah, exactly. And like I know that Michael and Robert and a handful of other folks have been like submitting fixes basically by making changes in dev tools and then just opening a PR and you can't really like test it, which is a bummer. What's up, Sam, Bastami, Samuel? How you doing? Um, Thank you, Sapling. But yeah, so we're working toward that. So that's sort of the idea. And again, the biggest thing is making it possible for people to work with it. So I just kind of want to dig into that today. And so I'm happy if people do want to do our usual kind of like chat discussion thing. I'm very happy to do that. But my intention is to start out by working on this project. And if we get derailed, we get derailed because that's what Tuesdays are for. Let me close up some windows and get the workspace cleared, and then we will fire this thing up. Okay, so here we go. Now I want to bring my couple of the windows that I'm going to have to monitor off to this side. Good, good, good. All right. And that, I believe, is everything that I needed to hide before we can show the thing. Yeah, here we are. Oh my God, where's there it is. Bear with me while I get all of my stuff organized here. Okay, all right, I swear I'm almost done here. Didn't realize how messy my computer was when I started setting all this up. Let's derail Jason. You know it doesn't take much, Jack. What's up, Life Mentor? What's up, Curebell? And let's see. So would the website then be completely independent from other stuff, or would you be mocking the other services for dev? So the intention would be that let's get onto a different window here. Go to GitHub. There we go. For like local dev, what I would like to happen is I would like for there to be just kind of a no-op setup so that if you're in dev mode and you try to do one of those things, it would just console log like, hey, you don't have the keys for that, so it's not going to fire. And I think that would be okay because for the vast majority of things, you don't need keys, right? Like to load. So if we look at the Code TV site, Sanity is read-only public by default. So like we can load the Sanity data set. You don't need a key for that. You can, let's see, all of this stuff, like that's all in Sanity. This form won't fire, but I think that's okay because there's not really any reason for anybody to be in there unless they were just trying to see how it worked. The blog is all Markdown MDX, so this works without any keys. Newsletter is this will load, the action won't work. And then the search, the Algolia stuff, I believe is all public. So I can probably just put that into the end template as like default values. And then if people want to swap it out for their own Algolia stuff, they can. And then once you get into here, you would need to create your own clerk development instance for this to function. And that this will start to break because like this is reading. What is this reading? Is this reading Sanity or clerk data? I think this is reading clerk data. And then if you you won't have the Stripe stuff, so like this part wouldn't work. These parts won't work because they are like reading Discord access and things like that. But that's okay because like I don't think most people who are working on the site are going to be in here. And if they are going to be in here, they can always hit me up and we can figure out how to like get the right test keys and stuff in place so that somebody can try it out. Like, because if you're going to be making changes in here, we're going to have talked about it beforehand, right? So really, that's kind of the extent of what you need right up front is like here, nothing. And then if you want to get into the dashboard, you would need a clerk test account. And then if you wanted to get further, you'd need like some Stripe test keys and stuff, which we can work out if you're going to get into those features. But so that makes it a lot easier because most of the automations are actually triggered asynchronously. Like that's sort of the joy of this ingest stuff is that the ingest stuff is set up in such a way that it runs completely decoupled from the website, which is why I think, why did I use this layout? This is a bad layout. This layout. So you know, the ingest stuff is much, it's just easy to decouple. It's kind of designed to be decoupled. I didn't decouple it because I liked the idea of running the entire website out of the same code base, which I still like from a, isn't it cool that you can do this? But it's proving to be too much for a, like I don't want to write a bunch of custom code to make it mockable so that people can work around it. So let's see, we are creating the code TV mono repo is what we're doing right now. So I'm gonna put that up on the screen. Let me jump in here. What's up, Tim? What's up, Viviella? What's up, Charles? Is that Annie's new show? That is hopefully going to be Annie's new show. We're having conversations about that right now. Very excited about that. Hopefully happening. What's up, Tabello? How you doing? South Africa. Late, right? It's like South Africa 14 hours. No, that's not right. It's not 14 hours. It's not that far. But yeah. Did I submit for my 100K plaque? I did. They sent me the note about it yesterday, maybe the day before, and I filled it out yesterday. What's up, V-Dog? What's up, Tejas? Tejas? Test videos from Mux. That is a great idea. I still think, though, that horizontal scroll bug from Mux, I think that's an upstream bug. That's my guess. Let's see here. Let's see. Major args project into a mono repo. Never used ChatGPT so much. Yeah, so I think I've actually had a really mostly pleasant experience. There's a couple things. Yuri, if you're watching this in the future, I'm gonna try to be very clear. Try to be very clear on what I'm going after here, so that I'm not. I think the project is great, and I want to be really, really clear about how excited I am about NX here. But as I'm hitting some of the functionality bugs, I want to also see about how we can fix those. So let's talk a little bit about what we've got going on. So let me collapse everything. Let me close all the close all editors. Let's shut all this down, and let's just look at the default of what's going on here. So in the root, what we got going on now is this is the code TV mono repo as it is currently in progress. And so we've got the kind of base README here. I've got it set up so that if you run dev, it's going to try to run everything, and then you can choose to run a single project by choosing that particular project. I use the code TV org name, and I've claimed the code TV org name on npm so that if I do decide to publish, that is an option. And so we've got our apps. We've got content, which this is the Sanity instance. We've got website, which is codetv.dev, and then we got workflows, which is going to be the ingest stuff. We've also got a libs, so stuff that is not independently deployable, just kind of support stuff. So, for example, Sanity generates types, and then I've got a handful of types that probably need to be exported out here to make them shareable. I haven't really gotten to that yet. We've got some Sanity interface stuff. This is shared between the workflows and the website, which is why I abstracted it. And if you look in here, you can see that we've got like all the different queries I use to get like all of the series, and then We also load the featured series, and we load the series by slug. And so there's just a ton of different Grok queries in here that help me load all the data in the shape that I need it. And then I also have down here some, I think these all queries, or did I add some? I might have some business logic stuff in here that's doing a little bit. Yeah, like I'm generating the episode number because I didn't want to figure out how to make Grok do that, and then a few other things. Or actually, no, this is one of the areas where Grok can't do a thing. So Grok is very powerful, and if you look at the query for this, like I can do quite a bit in here, where I can do something like build a custom object called thumbnail and like pull out the details that I want and all that good stuff. Can also do stuff like generate a path where I combine strings, and this is a whole query that's getting the slug, and then I get the episode slug. Like you can do a ton with Grok, but there's one thing that you can't do, which is when you are looking at the where's my sanity instance? When you're looking at the collections, and this is something I've requested this from the sanity team because I really want this. When you create stuff, so let's go into Web Dev Challenge, and you can see here that we've got our seasons, our collections, and I call them collections because there are instances where it won't be seasons, like sometimes it'll be something else. And then inside of each collection, you've got episodes. So Sanity stores the relationship here. So in the collection, for example, it will say these episodes are attached. Now the episodes themselves don't have a two-way binding. They don't know they're part of this collection because that's not how Sanity's decided to do the database stuff. It's not two-way. It's unidirectional. Like you specify an ID as a connection to this thing. So that's fine. I don't mind. But it does complicate a couple things. Like for example, I have to do like a two-way binding here where I have to set series for Web Dev Challenge in addition to creating the collection inside the series. So this is a bit of a pain. It's one of those things you kind of have to know. And if you don't know it, or you get them out of sync, then it wreaks havoc on the code base itself. You also can't get the index number. So like when you load these episodes, they do load in order. They load in the order that they're dragged to here, which is what you want, but you can't figure out, like if I request this episode, I can't use Grok to figure out that this episode is episode 3. Because it knows where it is in the collection, but it doesn't like return an index or say I'm in this position in this list, which is, again, I'm sure there's a technical reason for it, but to me that's something that I want fixed, because I have to now load all of these episodes to determine the position of this one in the list so that I can then determine the episode number. And the alternative is I have to create another field to manually track the episode number, which in my case would be fine because each of these episodes is like I'm creating them with episode numbers in mind, and that's all fine. But like if in the future we were to, for example, I don't know, do a show where we end up changing the order of 2 episodes, you would have to remember to both change the order in the list and then open both of those episodes and change their episode numbers. Again, not a problem, but it feels like the sort of thing that I'd want to be able to, like it feels like it should be derived data, not necessarily something you have to manually track. And so anyways, that's why in here, we're doing all this fun stuff. But then when we get down here, I have to find the index of the episode inside, and then I can get that index and +1, and that's how I get the episode numbers. So little stuff like that. But this all lives inside of Sanity, which is this library, which is then exported. You can see the way that these are set up is each one has its own name. So it's like Code TV Sanity. And then in the workflows, for example, when I come down to the package JSON, you can see that I've got packages from this workspace installed using the workspace : which allows me to grab these out as independent packages. The way that works I'm using PNPM, and so You define the workspace as packages like this. So I've got apps and libs set up as the two folders where like runnable projects live. And then in NXJSON, every time I add something, it generates extra stuff to like put this in here. So this is all generated. I don't really touch this. But the nice thing is that for me, that means when I add a new project, I don't have to like do a bunch of config stuff. I know that if I put it in the apps or the libs, and I know that if I get the package name right, it's going to be okay. There's a couple things that are a little bit like you just kind of got to know how they work, and the easiest thing to do is to use the generator. But they set up a fairly complicated like TS config inheritance thing where you've got your TS config base down here, which is the stuff that they want to be true. Then you've got your TS config, which extends TS config base and then adds references to each of the apps. And again, this gets added if you use the generator. This gets auto updated. If it's not, then you would want to add it. But then in each of the projects, you also have your TS config, which is extending the base. And then you've got your library, which has like project specific stuff. All of this is fine. None of this is a problem. It's just the sort of thing that you just kind of got to know. Like, so I can see how you would end up in one of those, like like asking the AI or something. Let's see. Like yeah, thank you. That's the Web Dev Challenge. We're filming one of those tomorrow. In fact, that'll be episode 9 for the season, I think. So that'll put us up to 19 total episodes, and then including the ones that we did as the remote ones before we officially renamed to Web Dev Challenge. I think that puts us at 25 total episodes. So yeah, really trucking along on that series. You want to deploy your apps, but you're lost about the cost side of things. Briefly explain the basics. Explaining the trick with deployment is that it depends really heavily on what exactly you're deploying. So for example, if you are deploying like an Astro site or a Nuxt site or something like that, deployment is probably going to be free if you use a platform like Netlify or you can get on Vercel, or there's a handful of similar companies that can handle that don't charge money for like the static hosting. So your free account will probably be just fine. On Netlify for sure, you don't have to put in a credit card to deploy the site. And then I think what happens is you can set limits where like if you exceed the free stuff, you can have the site just turn off, like if it's not super important, or you can say, I want, up to X amount of overage, like spend limit kind of stuff. So generally speaking though, like I'll from my purposes, I run Code TV on what would be a free account. I think I used to work at Netlify, so I have an alumni account that they hook me up with, but I don't use anything except like the analytics. I get those for free, and I think those would add like $15 a month or something. But none of the other stuff that I'm using, I don't think would get into the paid tier. And like I would say Code TV is a fairly advanced website. Like it's got a lot going on. So really where you get into payment is when you get high bandwidth, and for a lot of websites that's just not a concern yet, right? Like it's so if you lean static like that, it gets really easy. If you don't lean static, if you're running a long running server, something like that, then a service like Render, services like Railway, services like Fly.io are pretty reasonably priced. I think I pay Render right now $8 a month for a server that I actually don't even think I use anymore. I think I've just forgotten to cancel the service. But that's if you want to like deploy a Node app that needs to be on all the time, like if you're doing real time or something like that. Those are, again, like fairly straightforward to build, or fairly straightforward to deploy to, and they are pretty reasonably priced as well, depending on what you're building and all that stuff. Now, if you start deploying like AI services, those are, you pay by the token. So if you launch something that gets really popular, burn through a lot of tokens, that can get really expensive really fast. I personally haven't done that, so I can't speak to how quickly the spend goes up. Um, what I imagine people would do in those cases is just decide how much they're willing to spend and then turn off the service once it hits that cap. I think you can spend limit your tokens so that like once you've hit say $5 in spend or $50 in spend, they'll just stop working. But again, I haven't done that, so I wouldn't be able to speak to it with any confidence. Um, let's see. Getting into different grok, Vada. We're doing Sanity's grok, GROQ, not the racist one. Let's see. Audio issues that don't seem to be happening to other people, so I'm going to ignore them. Let me know if that's an issue. Do developers do vibe coding in Web Dev Challenge? Sometimes. There have been episodes where devs have, like there was an episode, I think episode 3, where Chan decided he was going to attempt to do the entire challenge without actually writing any code. You can't, if you watch the episode, you'll see what the outcome of that was. That being said, though, some of the shows, what people have done is they've sort of used vibe coding to get a foundation in place so that they're further along on like their UI, or they'll say, you know, just scaffold an API for me, and it's like it is good at that. If you are doing something that's been done 1,000 times before, there's lots and lots of training data on that to quickly spin up a REST API or to write some React code or something that's fairly like you've done it before. It's probably going to be fine, right? And as long as you check those outputs, it's going to go pretty quick and give you a lot of base level code. And we've seen that happen on the show where people will like use it to lay the basis of their UI, for example, and then kind of build on top of that, and it lets them get further than they were before. You'll notice if you look at this season versus last season, the projects are getting more ambitious, and part of that is that we've got two like teams of 2, so people can sort of divide and conquer on different stuff. But I also think that now you can leverage these tools to move a little quicker than you would if it was just you on your own, right? So I think it's been interesting to see, because I think we saw the kind of Jesus take the wheel approach not work out great, but we've seen the hybrid approach where people are using it for the things it's good at, and then they're using their brains for the parts that are unique. That's been working really well, and we've seen some really impressive projects come through the show. Yeah, Cloudflare has generous free tiers. What's up, Dennis? Thanks for watching. Welcome from Kenya. Dang. Let's see. Start doing episodes for IoT. Man, I would love to. I have a couple ideas around like IoT and hardware that I would love to dig into, but I don't have the connections into companies that would sponsor that sort of thing. So that's a little bit of the challenge I have right now. Is partnerships are sort of what dictate what we can do on the show, and for better or worse, literally every company right now is pushing AI super hard, and so I'm trying not to make every episode an AI episode. But it is certainly a challenge right now, because that's where every dollar of marketing spend is going. And unfortunately, until we ramp up the number of Code TV supporters to let us do independent episodes, sort of where we're at right now. We're working on it. I'm also hoping the pendulum's going to swing back to the middle, where people get excited about like being good at building for the web again, and hopefully that'll turn into a kind of a renaissance of craft, so to speak. Since it's fairly advanced, are we going to make use of clean architecture? I'm not sure if clean architecture is a reference to a specific thing. I am using an architecture that I would say is standard, but I don't know if it conforms to something specific. I'm very vibes based on my code. Like it should feel right, and that is an extremely like it's a small team thing. So it is the thing. Let's see. For architecture, fairly depends on what you want to use. Doesn't necessarily. Yeah, exactly. Like following a certain architecture can be good, but it's not really what I'm after. Let's see. See a challenge make accessibility more central. Hmm. Ooh, with voice controlled coding, that's really interesting. Mm. Kind of like that, like taking away people's implements. That'd be really fun. I'd have to look into. So the major challenge with that is basically that the accessibility companies have no money, so they wouldn't partner on that. So it would need to be a company that was trying to show that they're making very accessible stuff, which would need to be. It's not out of the question. That's a good one to put on like the hey, what if we did this? Um, let's see. Bring back blogs, man. I'd love that. I would love blogs. Yeah, clean is preference. I think 100%. So all right, so we're in this mono repo. And you can see here we've got the content, the website, the workflows, all those sorts of things. And so my big push recently I think I did this over the weekend mostly. You can kind of see my descent into losing it as I was trying to get this thing deployed. But what I ended up doing was I put together so these are the environment variables that you need to run the workflows. And you can see in here, I've got like the ingest client, and then I've got these integrations. And so these are all the different services that I'm integrating with as part of the automations in or in Code TV. So in order to make this work, right, you have to have all of these different codes. And so this is, like the .env enc thing I'll talk about in a minute. But so we've got a clerk key, a stripe key, we've got kit, which formerly ConvertKit, we've got sanity, we've got ingest, we've got Discord, we've got Cloudinary, we've got Google APIs. Each of these things is doing something very specific. Like for example, I'm using the Google APIs to update a spreadsheet when somebody fills out my Web Dev Challenge onboarding form, and I'm also using it for calendar access for this sort of like Calendly thing that I'm building as part of Learn with Jason booking. For Cloudinary, we pull the avatars from Clerk or GitHub or whatever, and then we fetch them into Cloudinary so that it's through my bandwidth and not because I don't exactly know how rate limiting works on hot linking and stuff like that, but I also don't really want to trust hot linking. So I'm keeping my own copies of the assets so that if a service is down or whatever, we don't lose somebody's profile photo. We need to use Discord because I send notifications to the Discord for things like when somebody signs up as a supporter, because that always makes me really happy. And I also send notifications for when people fill out forms or when something goes wrong with certain workflows. I post the error. So we need this one. Ingest is what powers the entire thing. We'll look at that a little bit more in a second. Sanity, when we want to update data, we need to have this secret token. So this allows me, when somebody fills out a form, to, for example, update their bio or to update the links that are attached to their account. Kit is the newsletter system I use. So for people to sign up to the newsletter, I need to be able to put their data in. I'm also working on, I want to improve the way the newsletter works, because right now it's very like everything goes to everybody. And I'd like to be able to let people show me what they want to see by saying like, only send me updates about Web Dev Challenge, only send me updates about Leet Heat, only send me updates about Learn with Jason, as well as like, I want to hear about new programs, like just stuff that helps me see like, do people like, am I making Leet Heat and nobody cares about it? Like, or I don't think that's the case, but as an example, like feedback is good, and getting information about what people are excited about, what they want to hear about versus what they're like, I don't want to hear about that anymore, is useful when making decisions about like, do we want to go hard on a season 2 of Leet Heat, or should we try a different format that's kind of taking what we learned and doing something different? Stripe is for the payments, Clerk is for user accounts, and then this .env enc is because we are using a Google API private key, which is a giant like certificate style key. And because it's being deployed to Netlify functions, which is AWS Lambda under the hood, we have a 4 kilobyte limit to the size of the environment variables that can be uploaded. And I don't feel like it's a full 4 kilobytes, but it seems to trip that service. So what I have to do instead is you have to be able to ship your environment variables as files in source control and then decode them. So we use this .env.raw, and then that gets turned into this .m.inc, which I can show because this is fully encrypted. And so this gets checked into source code. This is the Google key that's been encrypted. And then I have to decrypt it using, we can look at the code for this. So we use this decrypt function from .env.inc, which loads up the encrypted file and then uses that password that's set in the environment to turn this back into my API private key. So that's how that works. That's why that's there. Again, it's the sort of stuff that you hope you never run into, and then when you do, you lose a day figuring out how to work around the limitations, and then you curse the heavens for not just handling that for you, right? Let's see. But yeah, so basically this is the template of all the things that we need. So I've filled all those out in the .env here. We've got the private key, which is loaded into the raw, which I then encrypt the .env.inc, and I've got a little helper here to grab that and encrypt it. And then you'll see we're also using Astro for this. And the reason that we're using Astro for this is honestly just that it's the fastest way I know for me personally, just because it's what I ship the most, to get this endpoint up. Because in order to use ingest, you have to have a public endpoint that the ingest cloud then hits to pull in the workflows. So that's where we are right now with this. And then the way that this works is you can see we're pulling in a client and then the functions that we want to serve. And if we go and look at these, we've got our client, which we pull in all of the different schema for like what events are allowed. And then we turn all those using this event schemas thing. We turn all those into a schemas argument that goes into ingest itself. And then we pass in the event key, which is how ingest does some authentication stuff. Then over in the functions, which is in this index here, we are importing a whole bunch. This is basically a giant barrel file, but we import a whole bunch of stuff out of the steps. And then we drop those into this functions array. And this is what gets registered with ingest as functions that are available to run. So each of those is sitting in one of these. So let's look at one that's simpler. So like here in Discord, we've got config. So like I send in specific headers. We've got role IDs for like if somebody is a silver tier supporter on codetv.dev and they connect their Discord account, we want their Discord account to reflect that they are a silver tier supporter. So we add a role for that. And you'll see that if you look in the Discord that we have like different people in the Discord will have different like heart icons next to their names. And those are tied to different tiers of support. That is all automated now. If you connect your Discord account, we've also got the actual guild IDs, so code TV. And then right now I use a channel called bot testing, which is private to me and I think Aiden, that is where all of these notifications go. The intention is to eventually filter them and have some of them, like I got to decide how much people want to be put on blast for this stuff. Cause like, I like the idea of celebrating as people hit different milestones. Like if you look at the way I've written this, it shows like how long you've been a supporter. And so it's got like the streak going and we've got some fun stuff like that. But I also don't know if people want to be like, not everybody wants their business shared. So I probably want some kind of like a toggle that says like, don't announce this. I don't know. And then that's what's happening here. And then in the index, so that's a barrel file. So that takes us to our types. And so here's how this works. We have some types that get used within the library, like subscription levels that are available. And this is just me being lazy and having a different levels as strings. And then we've got the schema for events. So you have the event name itself. So you can do a Discord user role update, or you can do a Discord message send, and then you pass in a Zod schema. So the Clerk webhook user is defined in Clerk. And for the message send, we keep this one really simple. It's just a message. That's what you pass in. That needs to be a string. So the nice thing about this is that we have these kind of schemas defined around what you can and can't do. And then in the steps, we can define both of these things. So the update role is a little bit hairy, so let's look at the message instead. So this is going to look like a lot, but there's a reason to do it this way. So this is how ingest handles creating a function. You get the client from ingest, you grab out any APIs that you need. Why do I have the clerk API here? That doesn't seem right. Oh, that should absolutely not be being called straight up. I'll fix that later. But so you end up with the creating a function called message send. This is what gets registered with ingest for call. It gets an ID, which is oops. This ID. Oh boy. There we go. It gets an ID, which is just kind of an internal unique thing. You have the event that is what triggers this function to run. And then you have the function itself, which receives the event data and it receives a step. Now, because we set a message, when you look at the data, you can see this message string in the data. That comes through as auto-completable on the event object. And then the step itself gives us a whole bunch of different opportunities to do things. So in our case, we are running a thing. And so you label it, we're going to say, Discord message send, and then it's an async thing that calls to the Discord API using this helper function that we defined in API. And so if I come down to where this is, send Discord message, this is the actual fetch function. So why do this sort of rigmarole of getting through all these different things? There's a couple reasons. The biggest one is, this is something that I call a handful of times across different workflows. Like I send notifications for different things. I also want this to run as an independent retryable thing. And if this fails, I want the error for just this bit, just the sending of the message. And because I want to send this in different places, by creating it as its own function, it's sort of encapsulated as like a reusable ingest workflow step. And the same thing is happening with like updating the role, all this, it's the exact same process. You define the create function call, and then you give it an ID, you give it an event. In this case, there's 2 events that can trigger it. And then you define what happens once those events are called. And so there's a couple ways that you can trigger an event. And if you trigger an event, like in this case, this is actually a clerk webhook. So whenever somebody updates their clerk account, it fires a clerk webhook, which calls an ingest endpoint and says, hey, I've got an event for you. This event is called user updated. And now it says, oh, I know what to do with user updated. So it runs this function. So it's a very nice automation where we end up like, okay, so we grab the user out of clerk, which this needs to be abstracted out into clerk. We'll probably fix that. Then we go and get their role ID out of Discord. Then we grab the member ID, which is in the kind of like a little, this is like kind of hybrid external accounts, whatever. I think I started rewriting this and then, yeah, I know what happened. I started abstracting this and then I broke something and forgot to finish. So then you get the member ID, then you get the Discord member. So this is the actual object for the user in Discord. So we get their user, their ID, username, and their roles. And then we do some maybe stuff. So if they have the role that we're supposed to assign, then we just kind of no-op. We send back a little note like, hey, they've already got that. Otherwise, we add the role to them. And then we double check that they're supposed to have other roles. So like if you change your account level, you go from silver to gold, we want to remove silver and add gold. So we would check to see like, oh, you're not supposed to have gold anymore. So we pull that off. And we do that for each of the available things. I could probably abstract this into like a single function call, but nah, I don't care. Then we run all these in parallel because they don't affect each other. So we can await promise all on that. And then finally we step invoke. And this is where things get interesting. We step invoke message send. And so message send is the Discord message sending function that we defined. But notice what we can do here is we can say, I want to call this function with this data as an ingest step. And so the reason to do all this is where the magic really comes in. Each one of these things that's being called with like step.run is going to operate as an independent thing that's retryable inside of ingest. And if something goes wrong, it doesn't have to rerun the whole thing. It'll say, well, these pieces worked, so we're going to leave those alone, but this step needs to be retried. And a lot of times what it'll be is, flaky internet, or sometimes if if you're like me and you're not always paying attention, you'll create a race condition, and so the thing's not ready before the other thing is trying to run, and so it'll fail the first time, and then when it retries, this thing is finished, so it completes that time. So little stuff like that if you hadn't built a system like this, you would have to be catching errors and doing retries and figuring out how to determine like what succeeded and what didn't, so that you could, retry intelligently, and, defining things like, what's your back off strategy? Is it exponential? Is it, you're just going to like hammer requests until it succeeds? And by default, ingest just sort of gives you a decent, like, hey, this is how it should probably go if you make no custom decisions. And then if you want to change that, you can go in and configure and say like, oh, well, I want this one to run on, I don't know, like it should retry every 3 seconds until it succeeds, or something like that, right? But then, yeah. Let's see. What's this shell script that you're pasting, Fuzzy? Let's see. A toggle would be cool. Yeah, because I know, like, I think Vinny, you were one of the people who like didn't necessarily want all of your details shared. And yet there I am. But yeah. Oh, loading the GPG key. Oh, so you mean like loading in the loading in the encrypted stuff? So that's effectively what this .env is doing, if that's what you're referencing. So anyway, so this is how everything is broken up, right? We've got all these different pieces that plug together, and each of these is set up the same way, where they've got, we've got the different steps for clerk. And then some of them are more and less involved. Like for Google, we have to go generate this token every time, and we have to set the scopes, and there's a lot. I could probably improve this. I think I pulled this off of Stack Overflow because I was like so mad. The Google API is one of those things that I am confident that somebody can justify every technical decision that's been made in the Google API. And I'm also confident that if anybody at Google were to look at this API as a whole, they would be humiliated. Like it's just so hard to use, and so like rough, for it's just it's one of those things. It's like, that nobody designed this. Like, this is an emergent system. Like it's the process of a snowball of like a new feature request, and they definitely didn't have time to figure out how to do it right. They just made it work, and now you end up with this. Yeah. But so we've got stuff for like getting the host data. So we're like loading calendar events, getting free busy, stuff like that. And then I also figured out like just how do you get unbooked dates? How do you get the event list? You want to append a row to a sheet in Google Sheets. You want to generate your token so that you have your token available for making these calls. And then like you can determine who the host is. And again, each of these is sort of encapsulated like this, right? And the reason that they are encapsulated like this is because any one of these might get flaky and fail. And I want to feel confident that that's not going to be the case. So like I can jump through and like we'll filter for unbooked events. And then where does this actually, I think maybe I didn't finish this because it should be, oh, no. It's because I put it in the website one. The website one has where things start to get like assembled. So we've got like the Learn with Jason intake form. This is for booking. We start out by getting the Google token, and then we get the available the dates that have been put on the Learn with Jason calendar. Then we filter that for any Learn with Jason dates that don't already have shows on them, so unbooked dates. Then we get my free busy because sometimes I am traveling or I'm at an event or something, and that means that I wouldn't be able to do a show even if the show doesn't have a Learn with Jason on it. So I don't want people to book dates that aren't possible to do shows on. Then we use all that to turn into a list of actual dates, which is where I've ended. So right now, if you run this workflow, it will give a list of all the Learn with Jason dates that are not currently booked that could be booked according to the Learn with Jason and to my personal schedule. So the plan then is to display those, let somebody pick a date, show them a form, and then once they've filled out the form, we're actually going to pick that up in here. So we'll do what's called a wait for. So we can pause this workflow in the middle to wait for all of the things, and then we make sure that the date they submitted is one of the bookable dates, and we'll already have our Google token. So actually, we might need to generate a new token if it takes too long. Anyways, there's a million things to think about, but all of that turns into like a fairly complex thing that we can do. And so this gets down into what I want to do with it is I want to create a new calendar event that it invites the right people. Like I've got my captioner. We want to get operations in there. And then we want to also create the Notion entry. Then we want to generate social images. Then we want to send a notification to Discord. We want to wait for me to write the title and description. And then we need to generate the social images after we do this. Oops. Whoa. And so like wait for the title, then generate social images, then create an event in Discord, and then create a draft event in Sanity. So basically all the stuff that we would need done to make it easier for operations to happen. Like these are all things that currently are just a manual checklist. So yeah, anyways. Okay, let me do a quick break here. I'm gonna step to the restroom. And when I get back, let's actually continue trying to pull this thing apart. Oh, buddy. I did a really heavy deadlift yesterday, and now my back hurts. Not in like a I hurt myself way, but in like a you got these erector muscles that like keep your spine from wrenching. And oh my God, they're so tired. No way that game. I washed my hands. How dare you? Okay, so where are we at here? We've got all of our steps and everything. So basically, where we're at right now is I need a few things, and I don't exactly know. How to like do this safely. Because basically what we need to do is we need to get this deployed and functional and tested. And then we need to rip it out of here. Because like right now in the end template, we're still pulling all this stuff in. And so I need to figure out what I can get rid of in here. Because what I'd love to do, like we're going to need the muck stuff because we have protected playback on members only content. We're going to need this unless we move it all into like a serverless function, which we could do. That's actually that's a possibility. Your back hurts and you only lifted your mug. Good. Yeah. So Cloudinary, we're not uploading from the website, so we should be able to get rid of this. I think we need this because of how the actions work. Although I guess what I could do is I could actually create an ingest flow to send. Oh, this could be interesting. Maybe we can get some of this stuff offloaded in a way that would allow it to still work. How would this function? So, okay, let me think through this out loud so that I'm not just staring into space. So here's my thought. The things that require environment variables could almost all theoretically be turned into ingest workflows. If they were turned into ingest workflows, all we would need then is the ability to send an ingest event, which would require. That's a good question. What would that require? Because if it requires an ingest key, then that's worse, I think. Find in folder. Let's look for ingest. Because I specifically want to find internal stuff. Where is this? This is in .nullify. What else are we need? This is what I think I want. So ingest send. This is, yeah, okay. So in order to send this, because what we're basically doing is we're saying like, okay, start the user profile update workflow, right? And then I pass in the data, which is somebody's username bio links. In order to do this, we need the client, and the client has the event key. And I don't know if the event key is, I mean, the event key is private because if somebody has that, they can kick off any workflow on Code TV. So that might not be feasible from the standpoint of like I can't just like leave that in the code. So but it would be easier for me to make, if they'll let me, can you make multiple ingest signing keys? Ingest uses signing keys. Signing key should be omitted when using the dev server. That's probably something that I should do. That'd be great because then would also allow, oh wait. Yeah. Because if we leave it out, then when you're in your dev mode, then you would be able to. Yeah. Okay. So that could be interesting because if you don't need it when in dev mode, you wouldn't be able to run the dev server. But that would mean theoretically then that this would fire but not work, which would actually be good because then you could do stuff, but you would just know that it's not going to kick off the workflows, which would be good for the dev environment because you would then be able to kind of do stuff and know that you're not going to send off an event that could trigger a workflow or something. Can we add auth of some kind? We've got auth in a couple places in the site right now. And the way that it works at the moment is in here. No, not here. It's in the dashboard. So we've set up in Astro, we've set up Clerk. And so the Clerk SDK for Astro, you set it up as an integration, and then it's instead of having to do like a provider wrapper, they kind of handle that part for you. And then you define middleware here, and this middleware is saying if you are on dashboard, but not on the sign up or sign in page of dashboard, then that is a protected page. So if it's a protected page, then we redirect to sign in. So this operates before anything else in the request chain, which means that on our dashboard, which lives here, we don't have to do like auth checks here. We can ignore all that and just know that it works. But then we also have things like in the header, we check to see, I guess it's in the user button is the only piece that needs to be off. So we abstracted that out. So this one is a server component, right? So we're rendering this like server deferred is the strategy that Astro uses. So what I do is we check user, and then if we've got a user, then we can show their username. Otherwise, we show that they're logged out. I'm realizing now I could have also used, there's a component called signed in that would allow me to get rid of some of this bonus junk that I'm doing. And then down here, you would just do one of these. These can go away. And then out here, see, this is kind of a bummer because I would expect that this would validate the user, but I guess well, how could it? Gross. Actually, what we should do is we should just throw it in one of these anyways. We can take this. Oh, wait, no, I wanted that. Didn't want that. Wanted that. Why aren't these working? So that then simplifies, uses the actual like auth stuff that is provided by Clerk. So this is kind of a nice way to operate there. And then why don't we run this since we're in here? So we'll say pnpm run dev. Okay, now this is where we get into the NX stuff. So this NX stuff is super cool. So you can see here that it started 4 different projects, right? So we started the dev ingest server, we started the workflows, the website, and the content. Very slick. Takes a little bit of time to set up, and I don't know why. So this is one of the things is like I don't have a lot of feedback on like why does it take 8 seconds or something to figure out where the threads are. But then it starts things, and then I can come in here, and it's not super clear. But if you hit the number 1, it pulls this up in a thing. And then if I come to the other one, like workflows, and I hit the number 2, it opens it up in a second like panel, right? So you can choose what you want to look at on your piece here. And then it looks like it wants me to do some stuff here. So I'm going to hit I to make it interactive. I'm going to hit yes to continue that. I should probably fix this because this feels bad. It shouldn't do that. But now my local server is up and running. So I can now see my apps here. And this isn't working because why? So then we can Control Z to get out of this. And then we can hit 2 to undo that. Go to this one, hit 2. This is failing because it's double matching. Boo. Oh, shit. Listen, Vinny. I mean, I'm never going to tell anybody what to do with her life, but I have not regretted relying heavily on Astro. Like to me, Astro feels like writing for the web, where I've found that writing Next or a lot of the React stuff these days, it feels like kind of arguing with React and really hoping you don't have to reach outside of it to do other things. And I know the team is working on that, trying to find different ways of kind of approaching these challenges and you know, stuff like the React compiler and those sorts of things are supposed to solve these problems. But I don't know. I've been building for the web for a long time, and so I'm also probably just a little like jaded about this stuff. But I just feel like it didn't used to feel hard to write React, and every time I try to write React now, it feels very hard. And I've been writing it since 2015, and it just feels like every time I try to build something, I'm like trying to get around using React instead of just using it because I feel like the platform has come so far since 2015 that a lot of what React is doing is sort of at odds with browser-based stuff, whereas things like Astro are really heavily relying on browser primitives. So if you do a thing that feels browsery, it works in Astro, and I don't have to. I don't feel like I'm trying to figure out, okay, so what do I have to get a ref, and then I can use the ref to get outside of React so that I can do some DOM stuff, and then that doesn't re-render and blow away all the stuff that I just, you know, there's just so many like weird things you got to know about React that make it hard to work with. And then when you get into the Next mix, like I feel like Next is its own, it's like a whole different ball of wax that you got to then deal with, and it's just not. I don't know. It makes me feel like I'm thinking far too much about my framework and not nearly enough about what I'm building. And that doesn't feel like what I want to do when I'm building for the web. And Astro, I feel like I'm mostly just doing what I came to do and not arguing with the framework so much. I mean, granted, there's rough edges everywhere, so you will learn the quirks of any given framework. I just personally have found far fewer quirks in Astro that make me want to like throw my computer out a window. Um, but yeah. So what are we talking about? No, that's all. That's all you get. I do like Vue and Nuxt. I think Vue and Nuxt are great. I also really like the Vue and Nuxt team. Like I think Daniel is absolutely delightful as a human being. He really seems to care about the project. And like Vue is really nice to work with. They seem to be doing a lot of similar things. My one major contention with Nuxt is that they have some magic built in, and I really struggle with magic. Like when you don't have to import things, or like when everything is, but really like auto imports are something I deeply dislike, because you don't know what's built into the framework as a global versus what is defined in the code. You like lose all of your breadcrumbs that let you debug a project. So the times that I have used Nuxt, I'm pretty sure I spent the first few minutes trying to figure out how to turn off the auto import thing. I don't know if they still do that. This was years ago. But yeah, Astro was built for the platform. I do think that's sort of the whole thing, right? Is Astro was built later. The platform was way better by the time Astro started, so they could make decisions that wouldn't have been feasible when React was first coming out. And I think this is sort of the thing, right? Like React was built for 10 years ago. Astro was built for 3 years ago, and it's like the era that it's in. I guess maybe that's a better way to put it. It's not a specific period of time. It's the era. Like React was built for the previous era of the web. Astro is built for this era of the web. And it is like React is sort of adapting to this era, whereas Astro was sort of native to it, right? And I think that's what I feel. Is I feel like I'm using something that was designed for today, as opposed to sort of wrestling with something that was built for yesterday to deal with the stuff that I want to do that's possible today. So anyways, let's I feel like I appear to be coding because I have a browser open, but we're definitely not like writing code, right? So let's see if we can figure out why this thing is failing. The error that I'm getting is that this encrypted variable is not there. That's a pain because it has to be like this in... This sucks because now I'm going to have to do like environment detection, which makes me sad. So if what? This is the sort of stuff I don't like dealing with. Because what I need to do is here, like on this device locally, I need this to not have this piece. But on Netlify, because of the way Netlify deploys, I need it to have this piece. Or do I? Let me actually, you know what? This is part of what I was dealing with on Netlify that had me spinning. Is I could not for the life of me get this function to fire because it was saying it was missing things. So let me see. What do you mean? I guess this one? Yeah, there we go. So let me see what's different. So here's Code TV. When we get into the project config, base directory, package directory, publish directory. And there's the nx run command. You can see that I'm skipping the nx cache. This is another thing I can't figure out. When the nx cache is used, it like does a no-op, but then that no-op causes the site, see where it is. here, it says like all the files are previously uploaded. But then this, it says no functions deployed. I need a function to deploy because there in this previous build, there was an SSR function. That's how Astro works. But something in the NX cache, when it pulls that in, either NX is pulling it in incorrectly or Netlify is missing because it's cached that it still needs to deploy that function, which then takes down all of the, if you noticed yesterday, I had an outage on Code TV because this wasn't deploying the SSR. So to fix that, I had to turn off the caching, and the caching solves the problem. Like it just needs to build the site, which is a bummer because it would be great to have 15-second deploys on the sites that didn't rebuild. But if it's going to take down my serverless functions every time, then obviously that's a non-starter. But so base directory is here, apps website is here, and the publish directory is the apps website dist. Right? That's what I would expect. That all makes sense to me. So then when we go over to the automations, base directory is root, apps workflows dist. This is very interesting because look at this. When I'm in the website and I go to the netlify.toml, I'm including this the .env.enc, package JSON. We just run an Astro build. That's the build command. The TS config. Let's see if the TS config is different. Oh, it almost certainly is actually. I wonder if that, but that shouldn't affect import paths, right? Like that would make no sense. So then we've got the Astro config. We've got the output server. The adapter is there, right? And then we've got all of our environment variables kind of defined. This is an Astro thing where you can make sure that they're available in your environment with a schema, which is really nice. Okay. But then down in here, in the Astro config, doing server, got the Netlify adapter, we've got our environment. Am I missing something? Server. I don't think I need to set the site, but maybe I do. Because here's the issue. When I'm setting up this Google auth, I have to set it up like this in here. But then in the website, I have the Google auth. And then it is doing it like that. Okay, so here's the problem. In local dev, it's duplicating this path because the report from process.cwd oh wait, hold on, we can solve this. This is going to be really silly. But it's an easy fix. Right? Like, this is not ideal, but it should solve the problem. And then I should be able to do this. over here as well in this is for the website. So we will have to pull that one out. But for now, we should be able to fix this here by doing the same thing, except it's going to be workflows this time. So if it duplicates, we just do a find and replace to pull out the duplicate. Gross, but it will work, I think. Let's see. There we go. So that's working. And then I've got my ingest stuff. Here's all of my functions. Those are all doing what they're supposed to do. And then when we want to do runs, we can do things such as if I want to, for example, test one of these individual things, I can go to the events. Wait, where is it? Apps, view functions. Oh, here it is. And then if I want to invoke this, I can get the data. Right. So let's try one that I can control. So like this one, for example, doesn't take any input right now. It will. But when I invoke it, it runs and it does the whole thing, right? Here's all the steps happening. So this is the actual run here, like the total run. And this is the event that we fired, the forums LWJ book. So it then runs, it gets the Google token, it gets Google Calendar dates, it gets the unbooked dates, then it gets my free busy, then it gets bookable shows, and then right now it just returns. So I won't show the token, but I can get the Google Calendar stuff is in here. And so I can see like, here's all of the different calendar events that are currently listed on the public Learn with Jason calendar. Then when we get the unbooked dates, this builds us a list of these are dates that don't have shows on them yet. So this is what I would want to show to somebody, except there might be days that I am booked, and this only shows free busy, so I can show it. And so this gets that I am busy on August 7th, and I'm busy on, or wait, no, I'm free. I'm free on these days, so that I'm not marked as busy. And then I have on, I think one of these, yeah, like here, I'm busy, so I can't do this state. Like I need to do that differently. So that means then that I'm free on all of the days except, how far did this go? Into September? So you can see it's kind of showing me when I'm free, when I'm busy, and then that turns into get bookable dates, which then becomes this truncated list that excludes the dates that I'm not available for stuff, right? So this would be then showing somebody over the next 60 days, these are the days that you can book for Learn with Jason. I don't go more than 60 days out because every time I do, it ends up getting rescheduled. It's that seems to be the threshold for like how far in the future we can schedule one of these before it will inevitably have to get bumped. But so this is like why ingest is so dang cool is we did all of these individual things, which if these were being run in like a utility function, any one of these things could fail. And I wouldn't know which step in the chain failed unless I went in and added a bunch of console logging and stuff like that. But what I can do here is I can actually look and say, okay, these are the dates that it started with. And after it checks my free busy, it drops out this 18 and the 4th, right? So the 4th and 18th are the days that I'm booked. So don't show me those. Those will drop out because of the free busy. So I can really like inspect what's happening right there. And if I want to rerun it, all I have to do is fix my code and then I can hit rerun and it's going to do it again. So this is a really, really nice way when you're trying to like build these complicated flows to develop and to build this. Let's see. Study for an interview. Node.js API job writing, AWS stuff, nervous as you choke hard doing interviews, coding challenges on your mind during blank. I mean, helpful suggestions for interviews is like it is very difficult to prep for like the specific interview. I think the trick is to remember that like companies are trying to find somebody to do a job, and if you can do that job, then they want to hire you, right? It's not adversarial. They're not trying to like make you look bad or hurt you. And if they are, you don't want to work there. Most of the time what they're trying to do is verify that you know the things that they need you to know. So in a job situation where you're qualified for the role, treat it try it this is hard, but think about it less as being tested and more as having a conversation with future colleagues. Because if you approach it from the standpoint of, if you are trying to get to know someone, you're going to ask them questions about stuff that is aligned with your values. Like if you are on a first date and you know that you're looking for something serious, you want to talk about that. And that doesn't mean that you're testing the other person. It just means that that's a thing that's valuable to you that you want to know before you proceed much further. And it's the same with a job interview. Like they're trying to assess whether or not you're going to be able to do the work and fit in on the team. So if you can get yourself into a headspace where you think about it as this is me having a conversation with other developers about the things that I know and that are important to me, then it takes some of the pressure off because there's not wrong answers. There's just who you are. And obviously that doesn't matter if you don't get the job, it still feels really bad, but it can help with the framing. And I think that if you are comfortable, it actually helps your chances in the interview because you're approaching it as like a person who wants to be there and you're just trying to show that you've got the skills and that you're interested in these people and what they do. Similarly with coding interviews, typically what they're trying to see is not whether or not you are flawless or whether you get an exact specific outcome of code, but they want to see how you think through things. So slow down, take a breath, talk through it, assess the code. Like if you've watched me do these live coding things, I would probably focus a little bit more if I was in an interview, but that similar idea of like thought process, talking through what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, what I want to know, what I'm worried about, that helps show that you understand how systems work and how things fit together so that when if they're trying to assess your ability to solve a problem, even if you don't get all the way through the implementation, if you've been able to talk through all of the ways that you understand how the system fits together and how you would approach breaking the problem down and how you would fix it, even being able to explain a system like that is oftentimes enough to get somebody to believe that you know what you're talking about, right? And so I think that also can take a little bit of the pressure off. It really, again, it depends on the company, and I know that it doesn't help if you don't get the job, but in my experience, and this is both being hired and doing the hiring, people who approach this like they are genuinely interested and they genuinely enjoy people and the work tend to overperform in interviews. And I really think that a lot of that is due to the fact that they're not worried about getting the answers wrong. They're focused on being the person that they are, knowing the things that they know, and being self-aware enough that when we give them something they don't know, they say, "Yeah, I'll be completely honest, I've never done that before, but I would figure it out by doing XYZ." Um, that's the kind of stuff that I like to see in somebody. Like, I don't want somebody who's going to try to fake it or who's going to, like, it depends on the interviewer. It's so hard, but interviewers should know that the interview environment is not a standard working environment. So they're hopefully not assessing you on your ability to respond to high stress situations, but are rather trying to assess in the short amount of time that they have how good of a fit you would be for the team given your skills and the way you interact with people. So the interaction is actually a significant portion of that. And if you're really nervous and you don't talk and you seem uncomfortable, that's going to reflect poorly in a way that if you are, kind of open and comfortable and talking to them like a future colleague, it can help move you forward in other ways. So good luck in the interview. I hope it works out for you. Um, what's up, Shruti? How you doing? Yeah, exercise before the interview, that does help. Like taking I mean, even just like a nice walk, something to get your mind off things. Um, be calm, be cool, be cool, be calm, be confident. I mean, very much easier said than done, but yeah, pretty much. And yeah, good luck, Fada. I hope it works out. So let's get back into this and let's see what we can do here. So how can we quickly what do I want to do? I want to pull all of this into I want to pull this into a branch because we're going to start deleting things and I need to do a thing. So I just hit Q to quit. And this is the part where I'm kind of confused because I think is an error with NX and I don't know why because I can't find details on it. But like notice that this just spit out a bunch of stuff. I feel like somewhere in the midst of shutting down, it chokes and then it spits this out, and I don't know what this is. Um, I'm pretty sure, I think it's still running all of those processes, which isn't great. Yeah, see, they're all still there, and they're running really heavy right now, which is also not great. So this is something that I need to figure out with the NX team because the NX daemon is supposed to do a thing to solve my problems. And it doesn't, as far as I can tell. But so anyway, so I've been finding myself doing stuff like this, which is what just happened was these are all the things that are running right now on Node, and it's got the ingest processes, and there's a lot going on in here that all shouldn't be going on in here. It should have stopped when I quit the ingest stuff. So then I have to like kill all node processes, but even those don't always stop. Like if I go to the node stuff in here, where's like they don't all quit, and I can't figure out exactly why that's happening. So then I'm like in here. Oops, process name. And you gotta like quit them one at a time, and I'm like force quitting them because I can't get them to quit otherwise. So that's a new issue that feels not great. And I can't figure out exactly what's causing it, but like if I run, for example, what was it? Yeah, so I think I'm on the latest version of NX, to the best of my knowledge. Where is the NX CLI? This doesn't seem right. NX at latest. So what is NX 2132? This is showing not 2130. So pretty close. Local version is out of date. Oh, I know why. I had to pin it to 20 because it was hanging on CI/CD. So Netlify was like firing up NX in a like a windowed mode that never stopped. Like it wouldn't quit. So maybe what I need to do is npm NX run code TV website dev. That should So then it fires up this thing, which I don't know. I really, really like the terminal UI that they've created. I think it's awesome. But it's also kind of a bummer that it has these sort of weird like memory hanging issues. Um, so that's working as expected. Good, that's all fine. And then when I quit, I bet it's still running. Look at that, a bunch of node processes. And they don't die when you... Super weird. Super weird. And then if I do this again, so I guess the other thing too is like if I just move through to like apps website and I do pnpm run dev, is this gonna use the wrong port because the other one's still gonna be active? No, that one's okay. But yeah, so then this will fire up some node processes, but then when I quit them, it does exactly what I would expect, which is it lets the processes die, I think. We give this a second to refresh. Yeah, there they go. So then it shuts down to just these two, and I don't know what these are, but those are the ones that were there before. So like running it on its own is fine. So something in NX is causing it to like short out on me, and I don't exactly know what it is. But I would love to figure that out. Let's see. Oh, thanks, Shruti. I appreciate that. Am I going to post all the recent episodes there, or just the code? Oh, I understand. No, we're not going to post the video files on there. The monorepo is for like the website and like the workflows or the automations that I was just showing on ingest, and then the content management system. So the structure that'll make the content that holds the episodes is here. That's the Sanity setup. And then there are libraries for shared stuff like my different Sanity queries and Cloudinary upload stuff, and things that are being shared between the workflows and the website. But okay, let's do this. I want to pull a branch, so we're gonna get branch, and we're gonna call this monorepo cleanup. Oh, I know what I did wrong. It's not branch, it's checkout. What am I doing? There we go. All right, I'd get there eventually. So now we're here, and I can safely start tearing stuff apart. And so what I want to do is let's just run it here with none of the supporting systems, so that as I sort of unplug things, they won't explode. So we've got our ingest client, so we'll probably want to might need to move that out, like the ingest client itself. Do I want to move all of that stuff out and just have the workflows import that entire thing? That feels a little chaotic. Maybe it's fine. I don't know. And then I don't know. Let's not stress about it right now. So we'll need that ingest stuff. We're currently using the ConvertKit util straight up in here, which is, where's ConvertKit? Here it is. So that's currently doing like a bunch of hard-coded stuff. We've got that's my form. So we've hard-coded the form ID, which probably should be moved out into a config object or something. And then we get the subscriber details. And that is my, I think what I was originally doing is I was looking up the subscriber to then show a checkbox on the profile on the dashboard for like whether or not you wanted the newsletter. I think I turned that off because I think I turned it off because it was turning into a UI thing that I didn't want to block me from getting this new dashboard live. So I just kind of like unhooked it and wanted to come back to it. So these can probably stay. But what I want to do is I would like to get rid of all of this ingest stuff. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to pull the client out of somewhere else. That just sucks because then it has to be, because the client here has all of these schemas and stuff. Like you can kind of see what I was doing before. It was all hard coded in here as like one giant object, which is not the end of the world, but it's a pain for me because I wanted this to be more portable. And in order to do that, we want this to be a library. But in order to do that, everything in this workflows folder then has to move out. And then this will be the only thing in here, and it's going to import all of this from like @codetv/ingest, which is that's honestly fine. It's just more stuff moving in a kind of like painful, annoying way. I think it's okay. Why don't we just do that? So we can, how does this work? We go pnpm generate. Well, right. So the NX daemon, yeah, I can actually show you what happens when I do this. So here's the NX daemon. What's the command? It's like NX daemon. Clears cache NX artifacts and metadata about the workspace and shuts down the NX daemon. So if I run this, you can see that it just hangs. And so what this ends up doing then is if I NX daemon stop. So I've tried like resetting my computer and stuff. So I think my hunch is there's either something misconfigured in my system, which would be pretty odd because this is a not like brand new, but like within a couple of months old computer. So this computer has not seen the abuse that my other one did, where I was constantly like installing and uninstalling things and messing with versions and stuff. This one is much newer, and so it doesn't have the cruft of me doing a million weird experiments on code. So for me to be misconfigured would be strange, but it's clearly something is wrong because the daemon just doesn't work, right? And so again, I'm in the homebrew version, and that version that I'm using, I believe is 21, because I think that's the when I call NX, it's saying let's get out of this project because there's nothing installed. Yeah, there's no local version here. So when I call NX stuff, like if I say NX reset outside of the project, current directory isn't part of a. Ooh, interesting. Oh, it just didn't do anything at all. What if I try to stop the daemon outside of the project? The current directory isn't part of an NX workspace. So I move in and should I just remove this NX folder and see what happens? Okay, let's try this again. So let's do NX reset. I've deleted the NX folder. Maybe I got into a weird state there. Yeah, I think I've just hit some strange bug. God damn it, Penny. How do I eliminate mental blockers whenever I study your code? I have struggled with this my entire career, and there's like coping mechanisms and there are intentional things that I've done, and I would say that I've had mixed success with both. So my coping mechanism has been recognizing that I have a tendency to get real motivated and focused when it's like later. And so sometimes I just steer into that and I recognize that about 8 p.m. I'm going to start getting real productive. And if I just do that, it lets me get through whatever project is behind. I don't love that though, because for several reasons. Like one, I like to be in bed by 9:30 on most nights because I get up at 6 to go to the gym. Um, if I do the late night thing, it just has this cascading effect throughout the rest of my week where, I don't want to miss the gym. So I end up going to the gym on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, which means I get a bad workout, which, makes me cranky, which there's a lot of knock-on effects of doing it this way. I also know that like when I don't get enough sleep, I actively feel dumber. Like I can feel my brain functioning slowly when I haven't had enough sleep. Like it's like I know what it feels like to think, and I'm not doing it. Whoa, are we like fully locked up here? No. But yeah, so basically we've got let's let warp try. Let's see what it does. So the that's the coping mechanism is kind of recognizing where my big bursts of energy come in. There's also, there's some coincidental stuff that I think feeds into that, which is that around 8 o'clock, most people aren't working anymore. So you just don't see, there's no like activity to distract you. The chats are all quiet, your email's quiet, you're not getting like um people kind of stop doing you don't get a lot of DMs. It's just like everything sort of quiets down, right? So it's harder to distract yourself with pull type things. That's also, kind of a pain. So so coping mechanism wise, that's like how I've dealt with it when I'm not being mindful. When I'm being mindful, my deliberate strategy is to sit down and write a list. A lot of days you'll see I've got my notebook here, and that's I do a pen and paper list because that's how my brain. I can't do digital lists because they're just one more distraction. So I'll have my pen and paper list, and I'll kind of think about what the most important thing is, and then when I'm being responsible, and again, that's there's a big if attached to that. I will physically close all of the windows. Like I'll quit all of my apps. So I'll quit Discord, I'll quit Slack, I'll quit email, and I'll put my phone across the room. And then it's like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna knock this thing out. Set a timer so that I don't sit for like 6 hours or something. But really like put 90 minutes of uninterrupted time into this, and be willing to go into do not disturb mode. Don't look at your phone. Don't open up any browser windows. If and when I do that, I am so effective at any time of day. I'm especially effective in the mornings if I do that. Like my morning work sessions, like on there was a while, I don't know why. There was a while where I was like, I'm gonna be a morning person. And so I would get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and I would get, 2 hours of work done before I went to the gym and just weird stuff like that. And oh my God, I was so productive, like so productive. But it sucks to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I also don't like going to bed at 8:30. So it was it wasn't really sustainable to do it that way. But what I have found is if I sit down at 9 o'clock and I like don't schedule all my meetings right then I can put in like 2 to 3 hours of really, really focused work. And typically speaking, like they've done some studies on knowledge work where we really have about 4.5 hours of productive work in us in any given day. Like that's about how much we can do before our brains just give up, right? So we if we schedule well, we can get that 4.5 hours in a way that leaves us so much of our day to do all the other stuff that we want to do. The problem is that like right now I'm in the first 10% and the last 10% of a bunch of projects. I really don't want to write a bunch of emails. I really don't want to build yet another slide deck or create yet another budget. Like it's not stuff that I want to do. And that makes it so hard for me to buckle down and do it. So I'll open up the spreadsheet and then my whole brain is like, you know what you could do right now is literally anything else. And then I want to like open up my phone and look at social media, or maybe I'll just check my email in case somebody decided to email me and decide to do this project before I write the proposal so that I don't have to write this proposal. It's stuff like that, right? So I'm really good at focusing on like this coding project because it's fun. I'm really enjoying like building the ingest stuff. I'm really enjoying figuring out how to make all these mono repos work. Aside from whatever's going on here, but I don't necessarily want to feel like that's going to work. But sure. So I do not believe you, like at all. Daemon logs are available. See, but now if I do like a npx nx daemon help, is there detail or anything? Okay, so this is the older daemon. So this is interesting. So if I npx nx run dev without, oh wait, I want to turn off the, I have a script in here that's turning off the daemon. What happens? This is going to fail, right? No, it's just doing the stuff. But this feels super chaotic because it's just running all of them. They're just all running at the same time. Okay, so this is, I mean, it's cool that it's doing this. I can see why they built this this terminal UI. This is chaotic as hell, like just kind of dumping all the output into one terminal. But it does appear to be working, and when I go to quit, command failed with exit code. They did stop at least. Let me see if they're still running. Yeah, they look like they're all still running, so we can force quit all those. Get out of here. Okay. So I'm still having issues with Node or with NX. Don't know what they are. We'll figure it out, but it's all good. So let's shouldn't I be using pnpm exec? I don't think it does, but let's try. Let's try something that wouldn't use So here's our apps, website, workflows, good. We've got cool. Okay. App projects, E2E projects. I wonder what's the difference between a lib project and an app project? Like, am I supposed to? I guess I don't understand what the difference is, why this is categorized differently. That's fine. Composites graph? What does that mean? Whoa. That's weird. So show all projects, that's include related libraries. That doesn't mean anything. Group by folder. Oh, neat. Yeah, see, like this. So, okay, that's doing what I would expect it to do. And then what if I npm exec nx run dev? Both project and target have to be specified. I think that's it. Okay, and so this is using the local version. So I think fine. Yeah. That start up a bunch of processes that aren't going to spin down. I don't know how old these are. I don't have those details, so I don't know if these are like dead processes or if these are something else that, like, maybe NX is spinning up 6 processes that aren't related. But app is an executable that imports a lib. Well, yeah, that's what I thought I was doing. But it might be that they have like some designator, because I didn't use the generators to create these apps. So there might be something in the TS config or the way that it shows up in the NX JSON or something like that that would mark them as like apps explicitly, whereas I have an apps directory that is being picked up, obviously, but I'm not sure. I don't exactly know how all that works. But that being said, I am going to pnpm exec nx run code tv workflows dev. That's going to run the workflows. Good. And then the other part that I need to run, I'll just start another window for, and we're going to npm exec. Is it dev ingest? Is that over here? Yes. Okay. So fix that too, because that feels a little bit chaotic, but it's fine. Okay, so here's our local dev. We can see our app is running. It's got the functions. So then what I want to do is I want to extract all of this out into its own thing. So let's, in yet another terminal, we're going to pnpm exec nxg for generate. And then I want to use nxjs, I think. And we're going to say lib. I forget how it works. So we're going to use the help. Okay, so this gets us pretty close. It's going to be, I do like this feature of Warp where they kind of use the help to build out a thing for you. So this one is going to be called ingest, and it's going to live in libs ingest. And I'm not going to set the bundler because I think I want it to be none. This is not going to be publishable. And the import path is going to be code TV ingest. I think that does what I want. So let's hit that button. We don't need a compiler step because we are just, it's only internal. We're not publishing. I'm not going to bother with ESLint, and I eventually want to add tests, but not today. So now what we should see in the code editor is that we've got this ingest project, and the ingest project comes in set up with the lib all set. Everything that I wanted is in there. And then our package JSON shows all the bits, which I'm happy about. And why does it need that? That's how I can like call it ingest or something. I don't really want that. I kind of want to stick, well, we'll see what happens. And then in here, we've got our index and we've got our source, and I don't want either of those. What I want is to grab all of this bit here, copy it, bring it in here, and say, that's my functions. I think this can be, let's make this top level in here. Yes. Yes. So those are all fine. This is broken because it needs, it's going to be a process.env now. Import.meta or process? I think process.env will still work, so we'll just run that. And then we can drop this one out, and then we need to add ingest in this project, which we do by npm add ingest, and then we're going to filter for code TV ingest, -w for workspace. And then we end up with ingest in here. So now it's not sad anymore. So, okay. So now we're importing all of that. We've got our ingest client. Good. We export the ingest client. Then in here, what we can also do is we can just barrel file this a little bit. And we'll say ingest from client. And now we'll be able to get ingest and functions from the index of this folder. We're going to drop this lib that we don't need anymore. So we've got our integrations sitting up top like that. That's good. That's what I want. And these are all pulling. Ah, crap. Okay, so I got to go through and clean up all of these missing. Find in folder. We need to look for any usage of Astro. And those are all going to get replaced with process.env. And fine. So you, and then you. So now those are gone. One more. Stripe secret key is here. And you are broken because why? Allow Can you just add that to my thingy? No, dude, no. That's not at all what I wanted. Come on, bro. Wow, importing. Now these should all be fine. There we go. Stripe secret key. So basically, I'm just doing a check here to make sure that we actually have this, or we'll throw an error. Throw a new error. Stripe secret key must be set in the end. That solves that. And then you're still mad down here because of that's not right. You should have this. You should have these details. User should. That's not good. Promise, which should then come back. Balls. What are you missing? You? Is that the problem? Because that should definitely be typed. And it should be typed because it should have a type out of clerk itself. Oh, I think I know what's wrong. We're going to be missing a bunch of dependencies here because we haven't. Because we haven't installed these yet. Right? So we need to npm add clerk backend. Let's just scan through these and make sure we've got all of the imports. We need Zod. Oh, and we need Zod at a certain. I could probably just copy this in, huh? I mean, have Zod set it the right thing. That's not okay. Where is Zod set? Zod at 3. And then we also need to keep cooking on all of these. Code TV Cloudinary, so that one's going to have to be put in manually. Zod again. Ingest we already got. JSON web token. What else? Date functions. I'm doing this manually because I like to just quickly scan code whenever I make big changes to see if anything immediately jumps out as being like, oh yeah, I forgot. Let's see. Gotta get that sanity thing in there. This API is empty, so I'm going to delete that. And the reason the API is empty is because we moved it out into its own thing. So that was just kind of a vestigial file that I created. Let's see, steps here. We're going to need Stripe. And I think that's going to be it. Ingest. Yeah, these are all local files. So we'll get all that installed. That should fix that issue. Does? No, it doesn't. How on earth did this break? Like, you know how this works. And if I await this, it comes back with all the stuff. So how do you not? That feels like the sort of thing that's like, is it broken because I need to? Just going to see if maybe kicking it causes it to sort itself out there. Nope, still broken. That's really frustrating. Okay, so we're gonna deal with that later. Let's start by fixing that last piece we needed. We needed the Code TV sanity package. Code TV sanity. That comes from workspace and a star. Then run one of these. It does all the stuff, and the stuff is happy, I believe. Okay, so then continuing on. Wait, are you happy now? Oh, maybe it was because it needed the sanity stuff. Like maybe that was causing some kind of block up the chain. Could be. Who knows? Good. All right. Well, that makes me happy then to see that it was in Stripe, right? And then this comes back, and now this comes back. Ah, okay. It must have been because we were missing that last dependency. Let's see. Libs versus apps, does that reflect the project's folder structure? As far as I know, yes. But again, I don't know what it is that makes that made it recommend. Or, I mean, just in terms of how I'm thinking about this, libs are like non-deployable, so it's sort of like shared chunks of business logic, whereas an app is deployable. Is how my brain is splitting this stuff up. So then what'll happen here is I believe if I come in here and I grab Code TV ingest, right? And then let's install all that just to make sure that it's happy with that name. It is. And then I come in here and I say, give me ingest and functions from Code TV ingest. Theoretically speaking, this won't explode. Okay, so this is mad, and it's mad because there's the dev server. This is unhappy. Cannot find module Code TV Cloudinary. Oh, probably because we didn't install it. So let's fix that. Let's go back to the lib. let's go to our package JSON. And let's swap this one out. Code TV Cloudinary. And then I think this should auto-resolve, but let's just run the install anyways. And then I think you'll just pick up. Is that right? So let's just run that again. You're good now? Yeah, that's good. So this is now running again. Okay, let's trigger one of our events. I'm going to trigger this one because it doesn't have any data that we need to run it. Okay, so that's working. So then I think I can just delete all this. Okay. So I've done that. And then out here, I should be able to get rid of almost everything. So this goes away. These go away. Astro stays, date functions, ingest, JSON web token, and Stripe all go away. You need to go into the other one, actually. Have dev dependencies in here? Not yet. Okay, so let's install all that one more time. Thanks, Robert. Yes, I'm using Netlify for deployment. I mean, I worked at Netlify for a long time, and as a result, put almost everything there. And I just haven't had a good enough reason to move. Like it does exactly what I want. It's affordable. It has as few or fewer problems than most other platforms in the space. PNPM, a couple things made me switch. So I was on NPM for a long time. I switched over to Yarn. Yarn caused a lot of weird issues because it just always felt like it was breaking in strange ways, and then like each version of Yarn seemed like a completely different thing. And I don't have a historical account. I don't know exactly what happened. I know what I feel, and I felt like every time I updated Yarn, it really broke everything in weird ways. And then NPM added workspaces, which was really the only thing I cared about from Yarn. And then I stuck with NPM for a really long time, primarily because in any like educational stuff, I didn't want to force people to think about that because like NPM is going to be installed. So it was like, listen, if you have PNPM or Yarn, you know how to use that. But if I'm using NPM, it doesn't throw anybody who doesn't know about PNPM or Yarn any curveballs. Like they are familiar with NPM, that's what they use, so that's what they see me use. And then I just started hitting weird issues with NPM. Like it was slow and it would take forever to run stuff, and I don't know. So then I tried a project that was taking forever with NPM. I ran it with PNPM and it was like way faster. And after that, I just kind of was like, you know what? I feel like I'm accommodating somebody who doesn't need to be accommodated. Like everybody can, I can always just write use PNPM, Yarn, or NPM, whatever you prefer. Like it's fine. People are smart. They can figure this stuff out. So that was it. Yeah, I mean, like, man, I loved Yarn. I loved the idea of it. It just it felt like it lacked its governance was about like building the best tech, not about taking care of like legacy stuff. And I think that was one of the issues. I feel like Yarn had sort of the same. I don't know. It's like an ethos, right? Like maintainers and projects sort of have an ethos, and sometimes that ethos is we want to build the best thing, and we're okay with some like version churn if it means that the thing is technically better. Um, and other projects have a like hardcore backward compatibility. Like we will take forever to get new features out because we will not break backward compatibility. Both of those have frustrations. I have found I will happily choose the slow and steady backward compatibility project most of the time because it is so painful when you go back to a project and it just won't run anymore because something happened and like a version change and it was a breaking non-backward compatible, whatever change. And like I feel if I'm using internals or if I'm using experimental features, I know what I'm opting in for. But if I'm using the core functionality of the thing, like in Yarn, workspaces were a core functionality for me to be able to set up a Yarn workspace and continue using it through all versions of Yarn was sort of a default expectation, and that wasn't met. It's I like I'd say I have the same frustration with like Next, for example, because I feel like they keep pushing things that like change the defaults, and it causes things to be weird and break in weird ways, and so that's that ethos is it is what it is. Like people are allowed to do whatever they want; it's their project, but that's why I make choices differently. But yeah, so PNPM has been really good. It's nice and fast. It feels very similar to NPM. I think it's code compatible. Like you can do all the same NPM commands with PNPM, and it just seems to do all of those things the same. Like I think the actual command is like PNPM add as opposed to PNPM I, but it works if you do I, so I don't stress about it. So things yeah, it's nice. Nice. The caching of the packages really is a big deal. Like you'll see when it does this, it'll like reuse packages that are already installed if the versions are exact. That makes it so nice. Because this ran in 3 seconds to do a full install of everything. And I know that NPM when it's fully installed will kind of do the same, but I've definitely noticed that this is faster. What was I working on? I wanted to run this again and see if I think everything is working as expected here, which is good. So we've got those pieces there. Here, these are all running as expected. So that feels good. And then that leaves us up in our workflow. This is now light as hell. It's basically, it's importing the ingest Astro stuff. So for serving it, and then it's importing the logic from our library. And the nice thing about this is now when I want to use this ingest client, I can target that up in the website as well. So we're going to get ingest out of the workspace, and then in the places where we're using it, we can where are you at? Here. I'm going to use at code TV ingest instead. Oh, we haven't run the install yet. So that should solve that, give us the ability to run ingest now. And then let's see, where else are we using it? Import ingest. So this I want to get rid of entirely. Might be able to do now. Migrate. I have a Slugify. There's a Slugify function in ingest. Interesting. Okay. This migrate I don't really need anymore. This was a thing I built so that I could get the old data and migrate. So I changed my sanity schema in a way that required a migration. So I wrote a script here to like convert the old episodes into new episodes and attach them to collections and blah 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 blah. So this is more of like this is kind of vestigial stuff. Um, we've got all of the ingest stuff here, which is in the util, which is going to get deleted. We've got a client, which is also in the util. Discord. Okay. So this is going to be stressful. I'm going to delete this. Bye. Oh, okay. Then in the pages, I'm going to delete the ingest endpoint because we're not going to use that anymore. Then down in the utils, where the Google one moved, the clerk stuff, I feel like we need to, let's see, am I using any of this? I'm not using any of this, right? Like in this particular project, let me find in folder. Let's look where the utils are coming in. So we've got content config. We'll have to, that one we're going to need, we'll grab that from sanity. We have the sanity package extracted. ConvertKit we'll have to figure out. Cloudinary, I believe we extracted, so we should be able to do that. That seems to be the one that I use the most is this Cloudinary stuff. And then we've got more sanity stuff, so we'll be able to do that. The supporter button. Okay, so we'll need to think about moving the Stripe stuff. Cloudinary sanity, Stripe, sanity. Helpers. So the helpers, I think, what is that? Oh, is this part of the article? Yeah, okay, this is part of the article. It's not code we're actually importing. And U2, yeah, it's part of the article. That's Cloudinary sanity. Clerk is in the Discord stuff, so that's actually not relevant. Sign out, we're gonna have to look at. So clerk needs to stay for sure. The sanity stuff, I need to double check is actually exporting everything that it needs to export for people to continue using it. But that's going to be the bulk of what needs to get fixed here. So let's add in the packages for the website. We will bring in Cloudinary and sanity. And then let's run the install on those. And then let's review that the Cloudinary package is actually doing what I want. So in the Cloudinary package, we've got our source, we've got our index, and then this is, yeah, that's the create image URL. And that is the one that we're looking for. Good. So then when I come back to the find in files, for any of these, I should be able to just straight up code TV Cloudinary that. And that should work just fine. So I'm going to take this copy paste and let's go find all of the Cloudinary instances. And could probably auto do this, but again, I kind of like to peek at this stuff and just make sure that I'm not doing something I don't remember or that looks like, oh wait, that was custom. I need to do this differently kind of thing. Those are all exported. Okay, great. So I just did this. It's just 1-to-1. That's good. Wasn't sure if I had modified any of this. Oh man, I love a monorepo. This is good stuff. Okay, so those are there. And then I think we can do the same thing with the sanity stuff, but let's test. It's not mad. Let's just keep trucking here. Neat. Yeah. This is the exciting stuff. You just like refactoring and the refactor starts to come together and you're like, oh my God, I can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel on this. Keep on pushing through. This is going to build on the first try and it's going to be incredible. What is this? The type stuff. Okay, so we'll dump these. Those are going to get deleted because they are now being generated somewhere else. So I should be able to delete Cloudinary and delete Sanity and delete Ingest. Okay, let's go back to finding files and just see where the rest of our util stuff is. So we've got the convert kit, we've got the stripe, these MDX ones. What's the easiest way to hide these? Content blog. So we got more clerk, we got some Discord. I want to clean that up. That's going to come out of somewhere else anyways. Pages API. So a lot of clerk stuff that we got to clean up here. And then the MDX stuff I'm just going to leave because that's pretty like tightly coupled to how this is going to work. Let's go back to the folders view and I want to delete these types. So those are going away. Those are now coming in from somewhere else. Let me make sure that I'm not referencing those. I'm not. Good. Then is this all still built? Like, are we still operating a website here? No, you seem dead. Oh, you would be dead because we're not running it. What was I doing? What command am I running on these? NX run code TV workflows dev. Okay. NX run. We're going to do website. Just work on the first try. That would be so magical. Yeah, come on. No. Load actions. Okay, so something in actions is failing, and the thing that is failing is encrypted secrets. Ah, we got the double thingy again. So let's go to actions. It's in actions. And that brings in and I wish I could make Claude like understand, or what is this cursor? Whatever the thing is that I'm using. I decided to give these tools like a real try. I'm realizing I don't think I use them the way that people get a lot of leverage out of them. So I haven't noticed a huge difference from this in VS Code, and I honestly I might just switch back over. Why is this mad though? Code TV, apps, website, apps, workflows. Where was that called from? Mm-hmm. Let's go into root here. Let's just check all of these. So you aren't doing the thing anyways, and you should be encrypted secrets file, apps, website, apps, workflows. Oh, it's doubling up now. And it's doubling up because we have we've moved it. And we've moved it because we're not process current working directory. Is it you? Let's console log a bit. We're going to do these, and we'll say the path is going to be this path. We'll say the file name can be the import.meta.file name. Something is up where it's like not. It should be able to format this. What's being. All right, so I'm going to take this, and then we're going to go to the other one. And we will do another one of these, and then here's our, okay. So this is being called from the ingest Google auth because the current working directory is going to be listed as website. It's starting to feel real hacky. This .n.enc stuff drives me up a wall. I really don't like it. Yeah, why did I move it? Why did I move it, Mark? What was I thinking? Let's see. The transcripts, yeah, they are available. If you go to where was it? It was video search repo. Here, this content zip, that's all the transcripts. So if you go in there and download all that, and then the other thing that you'll need if you want to run this is you need an open API key, because the one that we used in the show expired and it was Mike's, so it's not for me to leak. But yeah, if you want to find that, it's linked from the README there. Let's see. Trust me, bro. You know, this is always the curse, right? Is that typically all of my problems could be solved if I would have actually read. We're not. Let's be honest, that's not who we are. So let's see. What? Sorry, we're doing a web dev challenge tomorrow, and so people are starting to arrive and sending me text messages. I'm making sure everybody's okay, and I'm going to respond very quickly to a question that was just sent to me. Okay. So 15 minutes. Let's see if we can figure out this goofy little bug. So I hate this. And I think the way that so here's what happens. On Netlify, the paths change because on Netlify, the way that it works is it bundles up like the site files, what it considers to be static files, and it puts those in one place. And then it takes the serverless functions and it moves those and puts them over in another place. So you can't use relative paths in this instance because it's not like an include. If it was if we were importing this, it wouldn't be a problem at all, because then Netlify would detect that we were importing it. It would bundle it all up, and that's fine. The thing that's a bummer is that I can't seem to figure out, like, when you get into the Netlify setup stuff. Let me go to the folders view. You have your netlify.toml. So let's get out of libs and into workflow. So we've got our netlify.toml, and I'm saying, hey, I want to include this in my functions, which that's what I want to be true, is I want that to be there. But then when you actually go to use it, right, you're including something in this lib, which is the Google one, the auth one. Now what's happening is it is like locally it knows where it is. So you don't have to specify this. On Netlify, because it's mono repos, it like moves the files end up in somewhere, like they end up at the root like this of apps workflows. But so like process current working directory functions differently, where on local, it's including apps workflows because that's where the site is. On Netlify, the base directory is wherever you set it to be. And so the apps workflows is not like, it's not running from there. It's running from the base, which means the paths come back differently. So in doing this little hack, we are See, this sucks because now we have to do like multiple permutations of this thing. I don't like it. So I feel like what I want. I feel like what I want is I want this to be. This is just going to be so hacky and gross, but we're going to, whatever, it is what it is. So we're going to do another replace, and we're going to replace apps website with nothing. And so that gets rid of the app website if it's been injected, because we want the .m.enc from the workflows root. And then this deals with the instance where it gets double added. Is that going to work? Apps website. Did I screw this up? Apps website. Oh, app. There we go. Apps website. There we go. There we go. Okay. Oh, that is gross. Okay. So that's fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. Now I'm doing. Everything is fine. Okay. Put the directories in an array and reduce the path string that way. Like, yeah, but it doesn't change. That wouldn't change the that wouldn't change the need to do this, right? Like, because in order to function locally, we have to add this. No, in order to function on Netlify, we have to add this. In order to function locally, we have to make sure that we didn't double it up, because the local process CWD is going to include this subpath, the app up here, the app workflows, right? Apps workflows. And it'll include that with the website as well. So process.cwd is giving us different output locally versus on Netlify. So what we're doing here is we're accounting for I need to write this down because there's no chance I'm going to remember this. This little maneuver. Did I spell that right? That's not what I meant. Is that a word? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Happens because process.cwd gives different output locally than it does on Netlify, and we need to make sure to strip out the extra path bits so we have a real in both places. I do not like this. Okay. So this is fine. We can drop the console.log. We don't need that anymore. And then I think that gets us pretty close here. Let's doof around for a minute with this bit. So this is going to be the dev tokens. That takes me in. I'm in as my test account, so I can go to my links in bio. And then if I update this, that is going to go to the ingest cloud, which this then, so this will actually solve a challenge I've had, which is that when I want to test, I don't necessarily need like everything to run. Well, actually, that won't matter anything because in order to run, they have to hit the thing. And this is failing because it is hitting production. So it's attempting to find that user and that user doesn't exist. Right. So no Discord account. That makes sense. And then down here, it should, I think, user get role ID. Anyway, so this isn't working for a lot of reasons, but let's wait. Is this even the one I was supposed to be user updated? 8:36 a.m. Uh-oh. Are we not getting events? That should have triggered an event, and I don't know why it didn't. Is it because it is on the test mode? Let's okay, so let's go to the Code TV site and let's trigger the update here. Do my favorite thing, which is to just submit it with an extra space, which should, unless I've broken my website, which I really don't want to find out is the case. No, it's fine. Okay. So this will do the whole thing, but then over here, I can send this to the dev server. And because I've got the dev server running, it's going to fire this through and we get what I would have expected. Perfect. Okay, good. That's delightful. So then we end up with the thing that I sent came through. It did what I wanted. We're all fine. And when so that feels good. That's nice. And it's really stripping down what we're having to deal with in the website, right? The website is getting much lighter in terms of what it has to do. And then a lot of this clerk stuff and Stripe stuff needs to move out to external libraries. So that'll be the same as what I've done in here with like Cloudinary here. So this was my util for Cloudinary inside the website. And I just moved it out to its own library so that I could import it into both the workflows and the website. So I'll do the same thing with the Stripe stuff and with the clerk stuff so that it can be imported in the website for the places where I need it because I'm using it in a well, and this again might be one of those things where like I might switch these over to being ingest workflows when I get a chance to look at them because that would be in a lot of these cases that would be ideal because then I have retries and stuff like that in case there's a blip like a Lambda outage or a clerk interruption or whatever it is, the barring of course an ingest outage, but they've been, as far as I know, like super reliable. So I'm not like it kind of is what it is, right? Like if you get a bad outage, you get a bad outage. But my hunch is that if ingest is down, probably, well, I don't know. Could be any number of things, but by moving the ConvertKit stuff into ingest, it also opens the door to do some other automations with that. So like if somebody signs up, I could like whatever, I could update a count on the web page to to round it to like like thousands of people are part of this newsletter. I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but like it would potentially open the door for that sort of thing where it could trigger different things. It could also, for example, if somebody signs up, I could look to see if they already have a clerk user account or something and like link that stuff. Like lots of interesting things that we could do potentially to make people's lives easier. And ideally, like if somebody, I don't know, it's all stuff that would be to make the website function better. and it would simplify what's happening in here, because then really all the website is doing is sending ingest events as opposed to like running stuff, which again cuts down on the number of things that need to be imported, and it cuts down on, like, I don't have to send environment variables up to the website anymore, which is the entire point of this exercise. Like, if we get the clerk and the stripe stuff out and into ingest, then to operate the website, you could send all of these events to a dev server. Granted, you wouldn't be able to like run the ingest stuff, but you could get through the process of sending off all those things. And what we could do, instead of having to mock every one of these services, is we could mock ingest itself with some like sample positive responses and negative responses, so that you would be able to run the website and actually do things like have the subscription go and get a mocked yes no response. Like you could do the same with like clerk updates. We could send off an ingest thing that kicks off the clerk updates, which is what we're doing now. And so we can mock, like, this is what it looks like, this is the response you get when it works, this is the response you get when it doesn't. And if you're in dev mode, we can just, we'll just make that work. So using both temporal and ingest, would I recommend one over the other? No, I think they're both good. I used ingest before I used temporal, and that's why it's on Code TV. It wasn't like I did a side by side and leaned one way or the other. Both of them are very good. Both of them have ups and downs. Like, I think ingest is like pretty slick. Like, their UI is good, and their dev experience is really good. The trade-off is their documentation is incomplete. Like, there are places where like, for example, I'm dealing with an issue right now where I have the signing key in my environment, but for whatever reason, it's not picking up that signing key, and I don't know why. And there's no docs, right? The docs are like, here's how to create a signing key. I'm like, no, I did that. How do I debug it if it's not coming through? Like, what should I be checking? What should I be doing? Temporal is much, much more mature, to the point of being enterprisey. So temporal has tons and tons of documentation. Some of it is a little hard to parse, and so you're kind of overwhelmed with information by temporal. I think that also comes out a little bit in their API. Is it like feels a little more enterprisey, which is both a good and a bad thing, right? It's extremely thorough, and because sometimes to be really thorough, it has to be very robust, I would say. It can feel like you're doing a lot. But there's trade-offs, right? Like, you want everything to run really dependably, and that's what the whole point of these systems. Like ingest and temporal, their entire thing is increasing the reliability of your systems. Both of them are very good at that. Both of them have, I would say, areas where they could improve, and both of them have areas where I think they shine. So, like, temporal has a really interesting way of showing the events sort of in flight that I like a little bit better than what ingest does. And I really like the way that ingest handles its dev server more than I like the way that temporal handles there. So it's very, there's a lot of like really good um, trade-offs, right? But yeah, no like hard answer to that question. I would say it's sort of I think you'll be happy with either. I would say use them both and see which API feels right for the project you're on. Um, yeah, all right. So we're at time. So hey, this was like a shockingly what's up, Rhombus? You came right at the end. Sorry. But so this was a shockingly productive one. I feel pretty good about this. I'm gonna push up the changes that I made. Let's see how bad this is. I think it's gonna be a mess because we did a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. So I just need to double check that we didn't. Um, Yeah, this is all stuff I want in components. And these all got modified because we switched them out to the packages. Just want to make sure I didn't accidentally include like an environment variable thing that dodged the git ignore. It shouldn't be possible, but who knows? It's worth checking. There's all our utilities that we got rid of. Those moved out of the website, so they will now be in. They're out of the workflow as well, and instead they are going to be in this ingest lib. So let's git add all. And that's going to be all of our renames. Good. Just double checking one last time. It's getting rid of the website stuff. This is the moving of the integration out of the workflows itself and into its own package. And then we got a little ways to go on this. We need to get the clerk and the stripe at least moved out into their own library so that we can access those outside of the workflows. Otherwise, I think we're in pretty good shape here. So let's git commit m, and we're going to say feature like initial extraction of the workflows is complete. And we're going to git push upstream origin. Set up that monorepo cleanup. So if anybody wants to see this, the Code TV GitHub, this is the URL of it. I can drop this in the. Oh, look at you. No, I don't want to open a pull request. I just wanted to look at the code. So that's the code as it stands right now. No, that's why I pulled it into a branch this time. Is I wanted to be a little more confident before I took this live, because I did the other monorepo change and ended up breaking the site for like I think 12 hours. We were having some issues because I didn't notice. Somebody else let me know. But what I'm going to try to do with this is I'll probably get this as deployed as I can. I might even see if I can get this like fully deployed, like get the keys in there and just run it as like a branch deploy with all of the permissions and like get the URL set up so that I can like test it properly and run each of the different event types through it and make sure they're all functioning and that we're not hitting any weird edge cases. But yeah, we'll see. You like to see me struggle? You don't get to see me struggle, Vinny, because I got my stuff together today. It'll be worse later. Don't worry. But yeah. All right, friends. I am gonna call this one. I'm feeling happy. I feel like we got a lot done today, so pretty stoked about that. On Thursday, we have Rich Harris on Learn with Jason. So that's going to be at 9:30 Pacific. I'm super excited about that. We're going to be learning about asynchronous svelte, which is, I don't actually know what that is, but I'm excited to learn. Rich was pretty excited about it. It kind of gets into some of the stuff that I was running into a month or so back. I hit an issue where it was like a big thread on Blue Sky with like Dan Abramov was in there and Rich was in there, and we were talking about like just how hard it was for me to solve a particular problem in React because of the way that like the use event and everything works. And Dan showed me how to fix it. It was a great fix. And then Rich was like, in Svelte, this would work like this. And I was like, that's interesting. And so now we're going to actually dive into that and like work on it on Thursday. So excited for that show. Recording another Web Dev Challenge tomorrow. We've got the season finale of Leet Heat coming out really as soon as I get around to processing it, which given my recording schedule might not be until a little bit later. Like maybe I'll get it out this week. It might be next week. I'm off my publishing cadence, unfortunately, but we'll keep cranking on that. Thank you all so much for hanging out. We will see you soon.